Hi, it's Sarah, and welcome to the Empowered Mothers Network podcast, episode 22. This episode is called Finding Your Tribe, the Power of Community in Motherhood. So, if you've been following Empowered Mothers Network for a while, I have written a fair few posts. I don't think just through Empowered Mothers Network, but a fair few posts about finding your tribe, finding your community. And I think originally when Empowered Mothers Network was more based towards just sort of birth and postpartum, a lot of the posts that I wrote were more designated towards that kind of thing. So, you know, finding your tribe just after you've had a baby, and that still definitely applies. So I will link some of those blog posts, if I remember, and I can find them, in the description below this video. So you can read those if you are at a place where you've just recently had a baby, or you're postpartum, or you're feeling quite isolated and you're in that phase of life. So this podcast is going to be a bit more just general, covering motherhood and the importance of community in motherhood, you know, no matter like what stage of motherhood you're at. So in this episode, I'm going to talk about the importance of community for mothers, the pitfalls of, you know, kind of staying really stuck in that mindset of going it alone, and I'm going to do it myself and I don't need anybody else, and also some tips and some discussion on how you can find your community. So talking about community for me felt kind of apt today because, you know, it's basically the ethos of what Empowers Mothers Network is about bringing mums together. And for me, personally, at the moment, I'm trying to think of different ways and brainstorm different ways of what works for other people as well as myself in terms of bringing together community. So as we'll talk about further in the episode, you know, there's loads of different ways we can foster community now. And I think I've mentioned this before as well, in that, you know, sometimes it would be nice to go back to like the way communities were in the past, but I don't necessarily think we can just straight up recreate how they were in the past, because things have changed. But we can always sort of take elements of communities in the past that have worked well and bring them forward and maybe alchemize them into something in the future. So like nowadays, obviously we've got the internet, so some communities like Empowered Mothers Network are sort of primarily online based. And yeah, from a personal point of view, I'm finding the challenge there is to get really what is a supportive community when it's through the internet and people aren't necessarily meeting up in real life, at least not all of the time. But there are obviously more and more tools now that help you kind of feel like you are together. And something I will say that I will probably cover in the section about the pitfalls of going it alone is that from a personal experience as well, is that I feel called to sort of create groups and community now, which is something I honestly thought I would never do. I didn't feel like I was the person to do that. But at the same time, I've come from a background where I've not really had community, so I know what it's like to not have it. I know what it's like to, you know, always be kind of moving to different places and not really settled and not having roots somewhere and not having people to really rely on all around you. So from that point of view, that's what I'm bringing forward into creating communities like Empowered Mothers Network. So as I mentioned at the beginning, Empowered Mothers Network was originally sort of for birth postpartum. And over the years, it's sort of grown along with me, and now it's more to support mothers that can really be sort of at any stage of motherhood per se, but really have this sort of common thread in that we're all going through this journey of personal transformation, and people will view that in different facets and call it different things. So for some people, You might call it like a spiritual awakening. Some people will be less spiritual and are on the sort of journey of just in like a self-growth journey, just wanting to sort of be the best version of yourself basically, and kind of step into your own power and reach all the sort of potentials that you hold within yourself. So because I think, and definitely for me, personal transformation, whatever it looks like on whatever level, is difficult and challenging and messy, and it's so much easier to have people around you who get it. So if I look at it, say, from a spiritual standpoint, from a spiritual awakening point of view, if you're going through something like that in your own life, then you may find, you know, things are shifting to the point where you're having experiences you've never had before. Yeah, you might find your like perception and awareness of the world itself is altering or changing in some way. And there can be some quite interesting experiences where if we haven't got people around us to kind of support us in that, we can suddenly feel very isolated and feel, you know, even sort of buy into it, like the fear that comes up within us, and just not really know where to turn. The worst thing is when you're going through like a really intense experience, and because you're going through it on your own, you don't have any sort of realization that other people around you may not be having the exact same experience, but they've been through the same sort of thing, and people have been through this experience, these situations before, and people can then support you. For me, the biggest importance of community is knowing that you're not going through something alone, not that you have somebody external to sort of solve all your problems or explain them all away, but you know that there are other people around you that are, you know, they get it and they can hold space for you, and that they understand what you're going through and they kind of validate how you're feeling. So yeah, emotionally and psychologically, you can, as part of a community, you can feel more supported. I think there's probably numerous studies that I haven't got the quote for right now, but there's numerous studies where, you know, we've got the link between being part of a healthy, supportive community and the benefits for someone's mental health. Just being able to get out there, whether it is the local community or a different type, you know, like a group gathering or something online based. But yeah, as well as allaying maybe any fears that we have about a certain situation or process we're going through, communities can support us in the realm of self-development, so that if we're trying to make positive changes in our lives, we've got, you know, almost like cheerleaders, people who are around us, supporting us, cheering us on, wanting us to be the best version of ourselves, you know, really in our corner. And that kind of like emotional support, if you will, is really invaluable to have. Now, obviously, the opposite of finding community is going it alone and having that mindset of that I think we're kind of conditioned again nowadays to have, maybe not necessarily consciously so, but that mindset of that we can do everything ourselves, and we can go it alone and we don't need the support of others. And I totally get this. I've totally been, you know, this has been a big part of my life as well, because I've got, my birth chart is very heavy in sort of Scorpio and placements and Saturn, and yeah, there's a lot of, you know, I can do this by myself. I can be self-sufficient kind of energy in my birth chart. And it's, yeah, it took a very long time and 3 children to kind of get to the point where actually, is that really serving me? So we, you know, we're expected to do everything in life now. So sort of all these different roles and obligations we have to fulfill. There's all these different plates that we have to spin, and you know, sometimes we do manage to do that. It's not always that life comes crashing down. Sometimes we are, you know, able to keep all the plates spinning and do all the things ourselves. And then we have that sense of accomplishment and that sense of control as well, that we have control over our own lives. And I think that's that's almost like a really addictive drug in a way, that we've kind of got that control over our lives and we can do all the things, and then we feel good about ourselves because we're in that situation. So then it can be really tempting from there to, go it alone full stop and just kind of move away from community. I don't think we consciously do it, like for me, from a motherhood point of view, I saw like once you've had a baby, and you're at home all the time and suddenly your life has completely changed. So that's a time when people naturally really do sort of try and seek out community. So, you don't want to be stuck in the house all day with a baby. It's just grim not being able to leave the house. And I know that because I had two under two, and there were many, many days where I just could not leave the house, and it is really grim. So a lot of people will obviously in the early days go and seek out things like baby groups, baby toddler groups, and forge connections there, and they're really, really useful. But then you sort of find as the kids get older, and then especially when either you go back to work or they start school, your path starts moving off perhaps in a different direction from the other mums that you forge connections with. And people just get busier and busier and busier and start sort of drifting apart in a way and not seeing each other as much, not as able to have as many sort of conversations that you'd like to have. And that's, I think, slowly how it erodes. You have all these good intentions at the beginning with like building community as a new mum, and over the years it slowly just starts to erode. So it's not like a lot of people are going it alone sort of consciously and saying, I don't need other people, I want to do this by myself. It's more that just because of the demands of daily life and the busyness, that sense of community sort of erodes over time, I think. And so coming back to that is quite a big commitment in a way for people. I think a lot of people want to do things and seek things out, but again, it's the time aspect. And I found this with like trying to arrange groups of women as well, that you've got to find a time and a space that works for everybody, and everybody's lives are so different and all over the place. It's very difficult to get everyone on the same page. So not having a support system, as I say, is probably not a conscious choice, and it probably happens slowly, that it erodes over time. But I do feel that it is something that is really, really needed for our own mental health, well-being, and especially if we're on this self-growth journey, that we want to continue learning and growing, and we can't do that. We can't do that single-handedly on our own, because then we have no other frame of reference beyond our own individuality. So I think it creeps up slowly over time, and then one day we kind of realise that actually we've not really got, so it may be something triggering that happens, like an unexpected event in our lives, but something that makes us sit up and think, okay, I don't really have a support system around me. And it may be that then you realise, or just it slowly creeps up on you, that you do feel actually quite isolated. Sometimes if we sort of sit down and say, okay, if I strip back all these different facets of my life and clubs and workplaces and take all that out of the equation, who have I really and truly got around me as a community at this point? So this is the point where we maybe realise, it maybe hits us that actually we haven't really got much of a support network, or sometimes it can just come as that inner sort of gnawing feeling that you get about something missing in your life. There's something missing and you maybe not quite be able to put your finger on what it is. And if it's maybe that lack of connection with people, being around people who kind of get what you're going through and also get who you are as a person as well. So whether you have people around you who you can actually really be yourself with, or whether you feel that when you're around people you're putting on a mask, you're pretending to be a certain version of yourself, or you're editing certain aspects of yourself. it's that realisation that a lot of us have now, where that kicks in and we realise we have just got this bit of a void, bit of a space where we're looking for other people to connect with. And I think now the way the world is, again, I always say this, the way the world is, but yeah, the way the world is just, we need to connect more than ever, because we're being divided, we're being pitted against each other, we're being like promoted and encouraged to look for the differences in people and what makes us different, and how that, that's why wars happen, essentially, isn't it? So we really need to, if we have this kind of longing for some kind of community somewhere to meet with other people who get us, then that's something we really need to start seeking out. And yeah, I think them kind of limiting beliefs and fears come up, where it's going to take a lot of my time, I'm a very busy person, I've got friends already, why do I need to find other people? Well, that's an individual journey, isn't it? And only you can decide what sacrifices you want to make, what you want to let go of in your life, or what you want to bring in your life, what you want to change. But I was just going to run through a few tips for finding communities, because again, when you say you want to be part of a community, the first thing a lot of people think of is your local community, so the place in which you live. And that can be a really good starting point, I think. Even if you just sort of get into like a local group in your local community, and that doesn't have to be relating to your kids or school. It could be just an activity, for yourself. There's plenty of community activities running, even in like small places. Like I don't live in Sedbergh is a town, okay, but there's not a great lot going on compared to, like, say, Lancaster, where I used to live, but there is still stuff going on. So, like, local groups based on an activity, sometimes you might need to travel a little bit, especially if you do live rurally like me. But if you go to a group where it's, it could be exercise, it could be... all I can think of is yoga right now, but any kind of interest group, basically, where you've got something in common with the people that are there, other than just sort of, we've had kids, we've got this in common, but you're actually also usually doing something practical there as well. So if you are feeling a bit awkward about going and connecting with other people, or you feel quite introverted or quite shy, then going to a local activity, something where you're doing something, and a lot of the time that you will be there for that group gathering, you will be doing something. There's only sort of the beginning, maybe, and the end of the group, where you have to kind of socialise and chat to people a bit. And some other ways you can sort of find your community, find your tribe, are things like business networking. So, if you're going self-employed or you're starting up your own business, you can, there's loads of business networking groups here, there and everywhere, and that can usually be good. There's often as well a lot of women in business groups now, which are really good, and I've been to quite a few sort of networking events in the past which were primarily aimed at women. And you can forge some really good connections there. Obviously you've got to go into that with everyone's sort of got the mindset of promoting the business up front. But you can also, find sort of people who are on the same page as you as well, and who understand, maybe the unique struggles that you have as, like, say, a mother and a small business owner. Another idea for community is that you might feel generally that you've got people around you that you can rely on and that are quite supportive. It may just be in one area of your life you're feeling a little bit unsupported. So that's where you can bring in people, say, like coaches or therapists, or somebody who will work with you on a one-to-one basis and maybe give you that support in that one area of your life that you need support with. Okay, the last two I want to talk about are, one is probably mainly in person, so that's women's circles. Oh, the light comes back. Again, women's circles now are popping up all over the place, which is great. I'm also in the process of trying to organise one myself. And you can get them either in your local community, where you're all sort of sat together in person, or you can get ones online. For me, something sort of spiritually based is what I'm after, but they don't have to be. You can get women's circles now where, you know, you might be doing a bit of meditation and yoga, or you might be doing some journaling, or it might just be a bit more like a mastermind group. So that might be, you know, if you are sort of joining up people in business, that might be somewhere between a women's circle and a official business networking group, or it might just be literally a circle where a set group of you come together and just share stories and share what's going on and share your hurts and your issues and things that have gone well as well. But yeah, there's many women's circles popping up now, and they can be a really powerful way to connect with people. So you don't necessarily all have to have the same interests or be on the same page with everything. And I think that's a really good thing of women's circles and groups, is that you don't all have to be on the same page. But it's training you to kind of sit and be vulnerable with a group of other people when, you know, there might be times people get triggered or people get challenged, or there's differences of opinion, like really strong differences of opinion, which result in arguments. So it can be really useful in not only kind of coming together with people that you connect with on a positive level, but also there's always that possibility that it can challenge you in a way, and that's the gold nuggets of where a lot of self-development lies. So yeah, at the moment I'm trying to set up a local circle, and because Empowered Mothers Network is it's going to be online based, so I may try and set up some circles in the near future on that. So again, if people are interested, then please let me know, because I would quite happily host some sort of online circles. And finally, yeah, there's online groups as well. That leads me into my last sort of way to find community, is online groups. So for some people, you know, these aren't maybe the first choice. You know, I think as humans, we prefer to come together with people face to face if at all possible. But, you know, sometimes life doesn't, you know, time is difficult and time constraints. And if we are connecting with people who maybe aren't in the same country, the same part of the world, a different time zone, then, you know, or travel related, something online can be really useful. I think there's a lot of Facebook groups which people find for community, but I know in recent years a lot of people that I know have got a bit puffed off with Facebook groups. I used to have one for Empowered Mothers Network, and I am pondering whether to start it up again or not for the community part of the network. For me, they do my head in, Facebook groups. I don't like being on Facebook personally, so I find the more Facebook groups you join, the longer you're kind of stuck on Facebook, and then there's all the posts and the notifications, and it's just, yeah, it doesn't feel like a place I want to be. So I don't know if other people feel the same way or not, you know, whether you'd want to sort of join a community via a Facebook group, or a lot of communities now that are online are more based through like the website, so like like a bit like a social network, but separate from the social networks, if you get what I'm trying to say, but somewhere where there's, you know, somewhere away from the main social media outlets where you can chat with other people in that community. And yeah, so things that spring to mind are a bit like Substack. There's quite a lot of communities on there. Patreon, a lot of people have communities on that. So yeah, for me, I'm not sure whether a Facebook group is just a bit of a waste of time for people. I will have a bit more of a ponder about that. But some Facebook groups can be really useful, especially if you're into, like, if you've got interests that are shared and they're quite a niche interest, then Facebook groups can be actually really useful to talk about that niche interest. So yeah, I hope that's kind of given a bit of an high level overview of like the importance of community, why we do need it, how it kind of just sometimes just slips through our hands and we don't realise it's not there perhaps for quite a long time, or maybe it never even was in the first place, depending on how we grew up. But yeah, if you can sort of recognise those signs of maybe feeling alone or feeling isolated within yourself, that's probably the first step. And then the next step is probably having the ability to kind of reach out and maybe connect with other people. And that can be one of the biggest barriers for people connecting with a community, is having to sort of get over the fears and get over that feeling really vulnerable, and kind of reaching out and connecting, especially if you maybe want to move into an existing community. It can be sometimes quite scary and overwhelming to approach an existing community of people and say, hey, can I join? Can I come in? That's quite scary for most people. So again, it's this journey of self-growth, whatever you want to call it, spiritual growth, self-growth, development. It's learning to peel back those layers of yourself that maybe them layers of yourself and then walls that you put up to say, I can do this all myself, that maybe they have to come down a little bit, and we have to get a little bit more vulnerable and say, okay, I need to start, sort of connecting with other people more. So yeah, the takeaway from this episode is probably to think about, are you part of any communities in your own life, or do you feel that there is maybe a community that you feel like maybe it's a good idea to join, or you feel compelled to reach a certain group of people in some way? But yeah, definitely not, trying to reach out and get over those fears is really key, because if we don't, and we leave it too far down the lane and start becoming too isolated, that's when we can get into feelings of anxiety and depression and isolation, and then that all just compounds. And once that starts compounding, obviously that does make it so much more harder to get out there and connect with people, because these emotions are weighing us down so much. So something you can do right now to join a community, you're welcome to join us at Empowered Mothers Network. So how do you do that? You can either subscribe to the podcast on YouTube if you're watching this on YouTube, and then you can keep up to date with the latest episodes. Or the best way is to join the network is to sign up for the bi-weekly, so fortnightly, Empowered Mothers Network journal that goes out via email bi-weekly. And you can sign up for that either by the Facebook page, the Instagram page, or just if you go on the website empoweredmothersnetwork.com, you can sign up to join the network there. And yeah, let me know please about Facebook groups and things, because I'm in the process of trying to get something together where the network can kind of speak, have chats and things. So somewhere where we can share ideas, and I don't know if the Facebook groups is right place or not. If everybody's there, then maybe it is, but I don't know. So please let me know about Facebook groups, yay or nay, okay? Otherwise, I will see you for the next episode.